He just texted Anya, demanding she cater his engagement party to her sister. But instead of showing up, Anya calmly blocked him, boarded a plane, and landed ready to say "I do" to a man who truly saw her worth. The insistent buzz of her phone shattered the precarious peace of Anya Quinn's small apartment. It was Dax Thorne. She almost ignored it, her thumb hovering over the ignore button, but an old, weary habit one. The message bloomed on the screen, dripping with the casual arrogance she'd come to despise. "Anya, don't be dramatic. It's Lila's birthday, and our engagement party. You know she can't stand anyone else's cooking. Be here by 6. Don't make me come get you." Her breath hitched. Our engagement party. With Lila, her supposed sister. A phantom sister, a manipulative shadow that had slowly, meticulously, poisoned Anya's entire life, with Dax and her mother, Eleanor, as willing accomplices. Dax didn't even bother to hide his contempt, his assumption of her perpetual servitude. He didn't see her as a person, only a resource, his personal, endlessly forgiving chef. Anya felt a glacial calm descend. Years of gaslighting, of being told she was too sensitive, overreacting, ungrateful, had honed her into a blade of quiet resolve. Her fingers moved, not to type a furious retort, but to tap, block contact. It was done. No dramatic farewell, no emotional outburst, just a clean, silent cut. Her small carry-on bag, packed days ago, stood by the door. She picked it up, a lightness in her step that belied the years of emotional weight she was shedding. The taxi ride to the airport was a blur of city lights, each one a fading memory of a life she no longer wanted. On the plane, soaring above the clouds, Anya finally allowed herself a small, private smile. She wasn't running away. She was flying towards. Reaching into her pocket, her fingers closed around a familiar, cool band of metal. A platinum ring, simple yet elegant, cradling a single, flawless sapphire. Kaylin Stone, her childhood friend, her confidant, the man who had seen past her carefully constructed walls, who cherished her, not for what she could do for him, but for who she was. Months ago, he'd knelt in her tiny kitchen, not with diamonds, but with a family heirloom and a promise. A promise of a life where she was seen, loved, and celebrated. She'd said yes without a second thought, the secret a warm ember against the cold ashes of her old life. Landing, the world felt different, brighter, fresher. But the past wasn't quite done with her. Her phone buzzed again. A new number. Eleanor. "Anya. Where are you? Dax says you've blocked him. What has gotten into you? Lila is distraught. She's having an attack, and it's all your fault for abandoning us." Eleanor's voice, shrill with manufactured panic, twisted the knife of familiar guilt. Anya walked through the bustling terminal, her expression neutral. "I'm not abandoning anyone, Mother. I'm simply no longer available to be used." A sniffle, then a weak, wavering voice cut in. "Lila. Anya? Oh, Anya, please don't be mad at me. I just wanted you to be happy, to celebrate with us. But now my head hurts so much, and Eleanor is so upset." Anya could almost picture it. Lila, pale and fragile, clutching her head, garnering sympathy. Eleanor, already primed by years of Lila's subtle manipulation, would be dissolving into tears, ready to defend her poor, delicate, adopted daughter. Anya had seen this act countless times. It no longer stung. It just made her tired. "Lila," Anya said, her voice steady, devoid of emotion. "Stop pretending. And Mother, I am done. I have made my choice, and it does not involve either of you." She hung up, a final, decisive click. Anya had endured years of this toxic dance, the gaslighting, the emotional blackmail. But now she was out. Her heart, once a battleground, was now a quiet space, ready to rebuild. She was ready to claim her own life, her own culinary legacy, and her own profound love, with Kaylin waiting. The past was a heavy door she had just slammed shut, leaving the echoes of their manufactured drama to fade into silence. The quiet hum of the plane still echoed in Anya's ears, a phantom of the escape she had just orchestrated. But the peace was brutally short-lived. A frantic call from the veterinary clinic shattered her fragile calm. Nimbus, her small, yellow dog with the distinctive black patch, was gone. Not run away, not sick, but deliberately, cruelly harmed. The vet's hushed, sympathetic words painted a picture of unimaginable malice. Someone had crushed his tiny body, the force unmistakably intentional. Anya's world tilted, every breath a stab of icy pain. Nimbus, her loyal shadow, her furry confidant through years of silent suffering with Dax and Lila's insidious games, had been stolen from her in the most horrific way. She rushed back to the empty apartment she was supposed to be liquidating, a dread gripping her heart. Eleanor was already there, wringing her hands, her face a mask of performative distress that didn't quite reach her eyes. Beside her, Lila Thorne, pale and trembling, clung to Eleanor's arm, tears streaming down her face. Anya. Eleanor's voice was thin, laced with a familiar, weary accusation. Lila found him, just outside the complex, she said. She saw you near the gate earlier. Why would you be so careless? Careless? Anya's grief choked her, leaving her voiceless. Before she could articulate the absurdity, Dax arrived, striding in with an air of aggrieved authority. His eyes, usually so fixated on his own reflection, narrowed at Anya. This is what happens when you're so self-absorbed, Anya. You just pack up and leave, and poor Nimbus pays the price. Lila found him traumatized, barely clinging to life. She did everything she could. He draped an arm protectively around Lila, who sobbed into his shoulder, murmuring, I tried. I really tried, Aunt Eleanor. Anya stared at them, the scene a grotesque parody of concern. The blame, the gaslighting, the immediate shift of responsibility onto her, the abandoned, the betrayed. It was the same old song, but this time, the melody was stained with Nimbus's blood. Her eyes, blurred with tears, scanned the distraught Lila. A glint of something caught her attention, a subtle, almost imperceptible scratch on the side of Lila's pristine, high-heeled shoe. It was a dark, expensive leather pump, the kind Lila wore to impress. And lodged in the scratch, a tiny, almost invisible tuft of yellow fur. Nimbus's fur. A cold, hard certainty replaced her grief. This wasn't carelessness. This was Lila. This was the true face of the sister who had systematically dismantled her life. Anya's heart hammered, not with sorrow now, but with a fierce, burning resolve. She bent down, pretending to comfort Lila, and with a swift, hidden movement, flicked the tiny strand of fur into her palm. It was all the proof she needed. A silent vow formed in her shattered mind. Lila would pay, but Lila wasn't done. The very next day, as Anya began the painful process of dismantling her life, an ambulance shrieked to a halt outside her apartment. Lila, sprawled dramatically on the floor, gasping for air, her face swollen, pointed a trembling finger at Anya. She knew I had a peanut allergy. She left those cookies out. She tried to kill me. Eleanor, already primed by Nimbus's death, didn't hesitate. Her face, usually so gentle, was contorted with disgust and fury. Anya Quinn, you are a monster. How could you? First Nimbus, now Lila? You are no daughter of mine. The words, though expected, still struck Anya like a physical blow. Disowned, again, for a crime she didn't commit, orchestrated by the very person Eleanor championed. Dax, meanwhile, stood by, his face a mixture of shock and self-righteous anger. Anya, this is beyond the pale. You need help. But something inside Anya had snapped, not broken, but hardened into steel. The emotional well had run dry. There was no more pain, only a cold, sharp clarity. This was it, the final, definitive cut. She looked at Eleanor, her mother, who chose a lie over her own child. She looked at Dax, her ex-fiancé, who couldn't see beyond his own shallow narrative. And she looked at Lila, the architect of her torment, feigning near death. Fine, Anya said, her voice eerily calm. devoid of any emotion. Consider me gone. She turned on her heel, leaving the stage drama behind. The restaurant, her apartment, every tie to this toxic, manipulative family. She would liquidate it all. Every memory, every connection, every last vestige of her old life, incinerated in the furnace of their betrayal. This wasn't an exit anymore. It was an immolation, a scorched earth policy to ensure nothing of her former self, no part of her soul, could ever be tainted by their darkness again. She had survived the fire. Now, she would rise from the ashes, utterly alone, but utterly free. The move was swift, decisive, a clean break from the suffocating residue of her past. Anya found a quaint, sun-drenched storefront nestled in a bustling, eclectic neighborhood far from the old life she'd discarded. The scent of fresh paint mingled with the phantom whispers of spices, a comforting promise of what was to come. Here, amongst exposed brick and reclaimed wood, she poured her grief, her resilience, and her grandmother's treasured recipes into Anya's hearth. It wasn't just a restaurant. It was a sanctuary, a testament to a legacy that deserved to be honored, untainted by malice or deceit. From the first week, Anya's hearth resonated. Her unique fusion of traditional comforts and modern flair, each dish imbued with a story, captured the city's palate. Word spread like wildfire through the culinary circles, then spilled onto food blogs and local news. Diners spoke of the soul in her cooking, the way a simple braised lamb or a delicately spiced panna cotta could evoke forgotten memories, could heal. Anya, initially tentative, bloomed under the warmth of genuine appreciation. The gauntness that had etched lines of stress on her face receded, replaced by the glow of purpose and burgeoning happiness. Beside her, a constant, unwavering presence, was Kalen Stone. He wasn't just the childhood friend who'd offered her an escape. He was the CEO of Stone Enterprises, a titan in tech and hospitality, a man whose quiet power was as palpable as his unwavering devotion. While Anya meticulously plated her creations, Kalen moved with effortless grace through the background, handling the intricate dance of suppliers, permits, and strategic investments that allowed Anya's hearth to flourish without ever compromising its authentic spirit. He saw her, truly saw her, not as a victim to be saved, but as the extraordinary woman she was, deserving of every success. His eyes, warm and steady, were her anchor, silently affirming her worth, her talent, her every triumph. Their engagement, initially a quiet promise whispered between two weary souls on a plane, deepened into a profound, vibrant connection. With Kalen, there was no pretense, no gaslighting, only an intelligent, patient love that built her up, piece by shattered piece, into something stronger than she had ever been. Meanwhile, Dax Thorne's world was slowly, irrevocably unraveling. The grand party for Lila had been a hollow farce. His self-important announcement of their engagement met with polite, puzzled murmurs. Anya's absence wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a glaring void. He tried her phone, again and again, each ring a testament to his fading control, his growing bewilderment. Blocked. He tried her work number, disconnected, her apartment leased to someone else. He escalated, leaving increasingly frantic, then subtly aggressive voicemails, convinced she was merely pouting, playing hard to get. "Come on, Anya, this isn't you," he'd whine, his voice laced with the entitlement of a man who believed everything he touched, every person he claimed, belonged to him. "Lila needs you. I need you. My stomach's been killing me and her cooking is... well, it's not yours, is it?" He didn't miss Anya the person. He missed Anya the convenience. Anya the exceptional chef who catered to his every whim. Anya the silent, dependable presence that anchored his chaotic life. The idea that she might be thriving, truly happy, without him was an impossibility his ego simply could not process. His attempts to track her down, to assert his ownership, were met with a wall of silence, her new life a fortress impenetrable to his desperate, self-serving demands. He was dismissed utterly and completely, a ghost in a narrative he no longer had the power to write. The calls dwindled, replaced by a festering resentment, a simmering disbelief that Anya Quinn, his Anya, could have dared to escape his orbit entirely. Dax Thorne found himself adrift in a life he no longer recognized, a hollow echo of the opulent existence Anya had effortlessly curated. The fine dining experiences he once flaunted were now tedious, the Michelin-starred chefs incapable of replicating the subtle, intuitive understanding Anya had of his finicky digestive system. His chronic stomach condition, once a mere inconvenience managed by her bespoke menus and soothing herbal teas, now flared with an aggressive vengeance. Every meal was a gamble, every pang a bitter reminder of Anya's irreplaceable touch, not her love, not her presence, but her utility. He missed the ease, the comfort, the effortless perfection she had brought to his material world. He missed being pampered, the quiet competence that allowed him to focus solely on himself. Lila, meanwhile, had proven herself an adept socialite, but a disastrous domestic partner. Her culinary efforts ranged from inedible to actively harmful to his delicate stomach. Dax, ever the entitled, grew increasingly frustrated. One evening, at a charity gala they co-hosted, Dax watched Lila, resplendent in a sapphire gown, gracefully navigate the room. She was charming, if a little too eager, her smile a fixed ornament. He saw her accept a canopy from a passing server, a delicate phyllo cup filled with a vibrant, seemingly peanut-rich sauté sauce. A jolt, sharp and unsettling, ran through him. Peanut allergy. Severe. He had witnessed Anya's frantic dash for her AP pen, the panicked calls, the fabricated near-death drama. Yet here was Lila, casually popping the morsel into her mouth, a faint smear of sauce on her lip as she smiled at a senator. No hesitation, no visible discomfort, just a normal, appreciative bite. The memory of Anya's distress, the frantic hospital visits, the dramatic pronouncements from Eleanor, all coalesced into a single, piercing thought. Lila had lied. The allergy, the near-fatal incident that had driven Anya to despair and ultimately, to her mother's severing of ties, had been an elaborate, cruel charade. Fury, cold and righteous, unlike any emotion he'd ever felt for Anya's suffering, surged through Dax. He wasn't enraged for Anya, but for himself. He had been played, made a fool of, manipulated by this delicate-looking woman he had championed over Anya. His pride, the very foundation of his arrogant self-perception, felt shattered. He cornered Lila in a quieter alcove, his voice a low, dangerous growl. "Peanut sauce? Lila? Are you feeling all right? No anaphylactic shock today." Lila's eyes, usually so adept at feigning innocence, flickered with genuine panic. Her porcelain facade cracked. "Dax, what are you talking about? It was a mistake. I didn't realize." "Mother!" Dax's voice boomed, cutting through the genteel chatter. "Ask Lila about her peanut allergy. Ask her why she just devoured an entire canopy drenched in sauté sauce." Eleanor's elegant features contorted in confusion, then alarm. She looked from her distraught daughter to Dax's furious face. "Dax, what are you implying? Lila is severely allergic." "She's a liar," Dax roared, his control completely gone. "It was all a lie. The whole charade to get rid of Anya, wasn't it, Lila? To make us believe she was a monster." Lila, trapped, resorted to her old tactics, dissolving into dramatic tears, attempting to feign fragility, but the malicious glint in her eyes, the raw fury that had just escaped her lips, had been seen. The columnist's camera flashed, a silent, damning testament. The whispers turned into outright murmurs, then gasps. Lila Thorne, the sweet, suffering younger sister, was exposed as a fraud in the cruelest, most public way possible. Meanwhile, miles away, in the quiet solitude of her thriving new life, Anya received a secure email from Detective Miller, the private investigator Kalen had insisted on hiring months ago. The subject line was stark: "Case closed, Lyra Vance identified." Anya's hands trembled as she opened the encrypted file. The report meticulously detailed the true identity of the woman known as Lila Thorne. Lyra Vance, a runaway with a dark past, a history of petty crimes escalating to a brutal, unsolved murder in a forgotten town years ago, where she had assumed the identity of a missing girl named Vicky. The real Vicky Quinn, Anya's actual sister, had died in a tragic accident years ago, a fact Eleanor had never truly accepted. Lyra Vance had meticulously researched Vicky's life, undergone plastic surgery to vaguely resemble old photographs, and then seamlessly infiltrated the Quinn family, preying on Eleanor's grief and Dax's vanity. The report contained damning evidence: facial recognition comparisons, fingerprints, testimonies from distant relatives of the murdered victim, and even the original missing persons report for the real Vicky Quinn, along with the chilling details of Lyra Vance's murderous past. Anya felt a profound chill, a deep, sickening wave of understanding. Lila hadn't just been manipulative. She was a psychopath. The malice behind Nimbus's death, the casual cruelty, the calculated deceptions. It all made terrifying sense now. The high-heeled shoe, still locked away in Anya's safety deposit box, was more than just evidence of animal cruelty. It was a fragment of a murderer's past. The following morning, the society pages exploded with the peanut allergy scandal. Dax Thorne's public meltdown, Lila Thorne's tearful but unconvincing denials, and the prominent columnist's scathing expose filled the headlines. Eleanor Quinn, witnessing the unraveling of her carefully constructed fantasy, received a discreet call from Detective Miller, followed by a thick envelope containing the unvarnished truth. The photographs, the fingerprints, the murder victim's face, the cold, hard facts of Lyra Vance's identity. Eleanor stared at the image of the woman she had embraced as her own daughter, the woman she had chosen over Anya, and the reality crashed down on her like an avalanche. Her heart, already weakened by years of misplaced guilt and manufactured grief, felt a searing, irreparable tear. The sorrow was immense, a bottomless pit of remorse. The daughter she had pushed away, the one she had disowned, had been right all along. The imposter she had welcomed had been a viper. The truth was a poison, consuming her with guilt and regret, threatening to extinguish the last flickering embers of her spirit. The air around Eleanor Quinn had grown heavy, thick with the unshakable certainty that she had been utterly, tragically wrong. The imposter she had welcomed had been a viper. The truth was a poison, consuming her with guilt and regret, threatening to extinguish the last flickering embers of her spirit. But far away from that suffocating despair, life had found its radiant, rightful course. Anya Quinn, radiant in a gown the color of dawn, stood before Kaelan Stone. Their wedding, a private affair held in a sun-drenched garden fragrant with jasmine, was a quiet symphony of genuine love and unwavering commitment. Kaelan, his eyes alight with adoration, promised a lifetime of devotion, and Anya, her heart full, reciprocated with a certainty she'd never known with Dax. The vows exchanged were not just words, but a testament to resilience, a celebration of finding peace after the storm. It was a day of profound healing, each smile a stitch mending old wounds, each shared glance a reaffirmation of a future built on trust and respect. After the quiet joy of their union, Anya's culinary empire blossomed. Her restaurant, aptly named Nimbus's Hearth, quickly transcended its humble beginnings to become a culinary landmark. Critics raved, customers lined up, and the comforting, authentic flavors of her grandmother's recipes, elevated with Anya's unique touch, became legendary. The warmth of the kitchen, the camaraderie of her staff, and Kaelan's quiet, steadfast support had transformed her grief into a thriving, beautiful legacy. Every successful dish served was a quiet defiance against the bitterness of the past, a savory declaration of her unwavering strength. Meanwhile, the legal system had moved with cold, dispassionate efficiency. Lyra Vance, stripped of her carefully constructed facade, stood exposed for the murderer and imposter she truly was. The evidence, painstakingly gathered by Anya's private investigator and bolstered by Dax's unwitting testimony about the peanut allergy, was damning. She was convicted on multiple counts, her sentencing a grim, public spectacle that marked the definitive end of her reign of terror. The pronouncement of a life sentence, without parole, reverberated through the media, a stark reminder of the evil she embodied and the justice, however delayed, that had finally been served. Yet, even in triumph, shadows lingered. Dax Thorne, witnessing Lyra's downfall and Anya's meteoric rise from afar, found himself consumed by a bitter, self-serving regret. It wasn't Anya he mourned, not truly. It was the Anya who had flawlessly managed his life, soothed his chronic stomach issues with her exquisite cooking, and enhanced his social standing. His attempts to contact her, pathetic pleas and arrogant demands, were met with Kaelin's impenetrable legal firewalls. Frustrated, his possessiveness morphed into a misguided, deluded ambition. He began targeting Kaelin's various business ventures, launching aggressive, often underhanded, competitive campaigns, convinced he could still assert dominance over Anya by hurting those she loved. His efforts, however, were like a child throwing pebbles at a fortress. Kaelin's empire was too vast, too robust, built on integrity and strategic foresight. Each of Dax's attacks merely solidified Kaelin's resolve and Anya's disdain. When direct confrontation failed, Dax pivoted. Driven by a desperate, warped belief that he could reclaim a piece of her, he used shell corporations to covertly invest a significant sum into Nimbus's hearth. He pictured himself as a silent, benevolent patron, a hidden partner, convinced that proximity, however indirect, would eventually rekindle the flame he believed still smoldered. As Dax plotted his futile schemes, Eleanor Quinn lay dying. Her once vibrant eyes, now clouded with a film of impending death and unspeakable sorrow, were fixed on the ceiling of her sterile hospital room. Days bled into weeks, each one a relentless tide of guilt washing over her. She called for Anya, her voice a frail whisper. Anya came, not out of longing or love, but a sense of duty, a detached obligation to close a chapter. The room smelled of antiseptic and regret. Eleanor, her hand trembling, reached for Anya's, tears streaming down her hollow cheeks. "My Anya," she choked. "I am so sorry. For everything. For not believing you. For choosing her. For Nimbus." Anya watched her mother, a woman now consumed by the consequences of her own blindness, and felt nothing, or rather, not the burning rage she once harbored, nor the desperate yearning for maternal love, just a profound, quiet emptiness. "I know, Mother," Anya said, her voice soft but firm, devoid of warmth or condemnation. "I understand you were deceived, but the choices were made and the damage, it cannot be undone." She squeezed Eleanor's hand, a perfunctory gesture of closure, not comfort. "I forgive you," Anya continued, her gaze steady, "for my own peace, but my life, my family is elsewhere now. The past is where it belongs." It was a forgiveness offered without reconciliation, a cold, clinical absolution that acknowledged the pain but erected an impenetrable wall between then and now, a definitive end to any hope of rekindled connection. Dax Thorne, a phantom haunting the periphery of Anya's newfound peace, emerged from the shadows of a quiet evening. Anya was at her restaurant, meticulously polishing the counter after a late-night private event, the scent of truffle oil and roasted herbs still clinging to the air. The heavy door, usually secured, yielded with a soft click, and his figure materialized, handsome yet gaunt, his eyes holding a feverish glint. "Anya," he breathed, a ghost of his former charm. "I knew you'd be here, alone. It's fate, isn't it?" Her heart hammered, not from fear, but from a weary recognition of the delusion in his gaze. She had anticipated this, perhaps, the final, desperate lunge of a man who could not reconcile his grandiose self-perception with reality. He spoke of destiny, of a love he'd supposedly thrown away but now, in his mind, was simply retrieving. His words were a torrent of warped logic, a twisted narrative of their past where he was the victim, and she, the errant beloved who needed to be brought back to the fold. "They've poisoned you against me, Anya, but I know your heart. You're still mine. We belong together. I'm saving you from this life." He advanced, not with aggression, but with a terrifying, gentle certainty that was more unsettling than any threat. He grasped her arm, his touch clammy, his grip surprisingly strong. "We're going somewhere no one can interfere. Just us, like it was always meant to be." Anya didn't struggle violently. Years of enduring Dax's manipulations had taught her a different kind of strength, a quiet, calculating resilience. As he pulled her towards a waiting car, she subtly activated the small, ornate firefly pendant Kalen had given her, a discreet GPS tracker with an emergency beacon. A tiny, almost imperceptible click, lost in the hum of the city night. Her mind, even as fear tried to claw its way in, remained sharp, assessing. She let him steer her, observing his movements, memorizing the route as his luxury sedan sped away from the city lights. He was not a kidnapper in the traditional sense, but a man drowning in his own narrative, dragging her down with him. He talked incessantly, building a fantasy future, oblivious to her quiet, almost clinical observation. Meanwhile, Kalen's phone vibrated. A unique alert, specifically configured for Anya's pendant, pulsed on his screen, showing a rapidly moving location. His calm exterior shattered. Within moments, he had mobilized his security team, triangulating the signal, his own car becoming a blur on the highway. The confrontation was swift and brutal, but not in the way one might expect. Kalen's team boxed Dax's car on a secluded stretch of road. Kalen himself, a figure of controlled fury, ripped open the driver's door. "Let her go, Dax." Dax's eyes, wide and horrified, flitted between Anya, Kalen, and the imposing figures of the security detail. The fantasy he had painstakingly constructed in his mind collapsed under the harsh glare of reality. The woman he believed was his to reclaim stood beside Kalen, her face impassive, her gaze holding only pity, no love, no anger, just a profound, empty pity that pierced him deeper than any accusation. You betrayed me," he whispered, his voice cracking, not to Anya, but to the universe that refused to bend to his will. The weight of his delusions, of his lost empire, of Anya's final, unyielding detachment, crushed him. He stared at Anya for a long, agonizing moment, seeing not the woman he wanted to possess, but the woman he had irrevocably lost, her spirit unbreakable, her future bright and undeniably separate from his. A profound despair settled over him. Before anyone could react, Dax, in a final, tragic act of self-destruction, swallowed a handful of pills he had kept hidden, collapsing almost instantly. His end was not a grand gesture of defiance, but a quiet, pathetic surrender to the void he had meticulously created around himself. News of Dax Thorne's demise sent ripples through the city's elite. His will, surprisingly, left a significant portion of his considerable assets to Anya Quinn. She, without hesitation or a moment of triumph, instructed her lawyers to establish a charitable foundation for mental health awareness and support, particularly for those struggling with narcissistic personality disorders and their victims. The irony was not lost on her, but the act was one of peace, not vengeance. A few weeks later, a brief, stark headline in a national newspaper confirmed the execution of Lyra Vance, formerly known as Lila Thorne, for her multiple heinous crimes, including the murder of the real Vicky Quinn and Nimbus. Her reign of terror had finally, definitively ended. Anya read it, felt a cold sense of justice, and then turned the page. Life, for Anya and Kalen, continued to unfold in quiet beauty. They adopted a new puppy, a fluffy golden retriever mix with a curious black patch over one eye, whom they affectionately named Little Nimbus. He brought boundless joy, a wagging, innocent counterpoint to the scars of the past. Their home, nestled amidst sprawling gardens, became a sanctuary. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of lavender and rose, Anya found Kalen in their garden, surrounded by countless jars filled with the gentle, flickering glow of fireflies. He had spent months cultivating them, a living testament to his promise of pure, enduring love. He reached for her hand, his touch warm and real. "To new beginnings," Kalen murmured, his eyes reflecting the soft light of 1,000 tiny stars. Anya leaned into him, the scent of jasmine and warm earth filling her senses. "To forever," she whispered, her voice filled with a peace that was hard-won true and as boundless as the starlit sky. Her journey had been won through fire and ashes, but she had emerged, not merely whole, but profoundly, beautifully alive. Their love, like the fireflies, was a delicate, luminous beacon, dispelling the darkness, promising an everlasting, vibrant glow.